those of you who are wondering who I am, I'm Lakeila Stemmons, an executive producer of The SIP. While The SIP is on spring break, we're taking a look back over the past year to revisit a few of our favorite shows. For me, it was our Black Women Vote 2020 Sunday brunch with Higher Heights. I hope you enjoyed this look back to September 2020 and remember the energy that fueled the historic mobilization effort that led by Black women that allowed us to step into her story.
Good afternoon and welcome to Sunday Brunch with Higher Heights, powered by the SIP. This is a special hashtag Black Women Vote special. We are on the final drive to ensure that Black women have all the tools they need to be informed, engaged, and to take action. So we need you to invite your girlfriends, your network, your crew to participate in this conversation today. It will be informative, but it is also, we are brunching hard. It will be able to bring joy and to fuel your soul, your minds, and your bodies. I am Glenda Carr, president of Higher Heights for America. And I am so excited about today. Tell us where you are watching from, and that is state, city, what part of the house, and what you are most excited about the conversation today. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Bishop Leah Daughtry, political strategist, faith leader, author, to bring us a word.
Good afternoon, my sisters. It's so great to be with you today. And I want to share a thought with you. This has been a week. Well, it's been a month. Actually, it's been a whole year. 2020 did not come to play with us. And it seems like the hits come and, we get our equilibrium and then something else happens. I had just gotten my sea legs after Chadwick Boseman's passing. And then here comes Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I felt the air coming out of me again as I said, what now? What next? What is happening? And for all of you who are feeling that, I just want to share this thought with you. And it's Sunday, so you know I'm going to take a text. Psalm 46. Psalm 46. God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains are carried away into the sea, and though the waters roar and be troubled, and though the mountains are shaking with the swelling. I am God. And the scripture goes on to say, the Lord of hosts is with us. God of Jacob is our refuge. So be still and know that I am God. We've got arrows coming at us all day long. And besides the political situation that's happening and all of the things that are happening, there is trouble in our homes, unrest in our workplaces, all of the things we counted as certain seem so uncertain. All of the things we were sure of coming into this year have been disrupted, have been turned upside down, and we find ourselves trying to find solid ground in the middle of the ocean. But God reassures us that He is our help, He is our refuge, in every instance, a very present help in the time of trouble. Some friends you have, and when trouble comes, you can't find them. But God says, I will be with you in the midst of trouble, in the midst of the very kind of uproar that we find ourselves in right now. Whether it's the big things like hurricanes, whether it's the big things like the death of justice, whether it's the big things like the loss of loved ones, or the smaller things like just trying to have a little peace in my home. Just trying to find a Lysol disinfectant when I need it. Just trying to maintain relationships with friends who I haven't seen in months. God tells us that God is present with us in the midst of every situation that we will face. And what if this is a time that we are called now to find our place in God, to reconnect, to rejoin that family of that sisterhood, that brotherhood of the family of God, to retool and restart our relationship with the Most High God. God says, I'm with you. I'm a very present help. I'm going to be standing right beside you, in front of you, behind you, beneath you, above you as you go through this storm. But in the end of it all, I need you to be still and know. Be still and know. The busyness of our lives sometimes takes us in directions that are not in sync or aligned with the word, the will, and the way of God. And God says, no, be still. Just take a moment, daughter. Just take a moment, son. Be still and know and be reassured that I am God, the God who created you, the God who knew you before you were born, the God that has plans for you, the God that delights in you, the God that looks from high heaven and says, that's my child. Did you see what she did today? The God who is the lover of our soul, the God that loves you the most. Be still and know, rest in that assurance. Have confidence in that knowledge that God's got you. God's walking beside you as you go through the storm, as you go through the trouble, as we go through these next 45 days. God's got you, walking beside you, nourishing you, loving you, carrying you when you need to be carried, pushing you when you need to be pushed, pulling you when you need to be pulled, but most of all, carrying you hand in hand, step by step, into the destiny that God created for you before the foundation of time. Still and know. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Daughtry, for that word. And if you want to hear that word consistently, she does an amazing Facebook Live every Wednesday at noon. Bringing on my girl, Tracy Sturdivant, president of the League, for this next conversation on the service of sisterhood. I think we all agree sisterhood is defined 1,000 different ways. And I'm so excited to call Tracy a true sister in the movement, a true sister in my personal life, a true sister in Greekdom. And so we have the opportunity this afternoon to be in conversation with two women leading national historically Black sororities. So please welcome our guest, Beverly Smith, the president and CEO of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and Dr. Glenda Baskin Glover, the international president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. These two women and their organizations truly embody selfless service, as well as a lifelong friendship and shared commitment to our communities that bonds so many Black women. Thank you so much for joining us, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm so, to your point, Glenda, so excited that these esteemed leaders were able to join us. Glenda, she didn't mention it, but is a member of a Black Greek letter organization, member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. I'm sure she'll get to that. She's got on her pink and green. I am a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, wearing my blue and gold today. And shout out to Zeta Phi Beta, who we don't have as a part of this conversation, but as this discussion continues to go in the run up to the election, we're gonna make sure that members of the Black Greek letter sororities show up in this conversation about the importance of Black women's vote and what our organizations are doing to engage our thousands of members across the country. You know, the Divine Nine, play a key part in helping to develop Black leaders in our community, not just political leaders, but leaders across the board. And we want to thank you both for being here and your leadership and your commitment to the organizations. We want to talk a little bit about the legacy of women whose shoulders we stand on, the freedom fighters who, called this country to never again deny equal, unfettered access to the sacred right to vote. How important is Black women's leadership during a time like this? I'll start with you, Beverly.
And thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to be here, Tracy, and good to be with everybody. Thank you for Higher Heights for inviting me today. You know, when you think about the legacy of Black women and the importance of our role, starting back even before the suffragette march, but even with that, in terms of which we were there as an organization, AKA was also there. They had members who were marching. I think it's important to understand the legacy we have from a time when we had you know, I look at the Black women who have been involved in the movement since the very beginning. Mary McLeod Bethune, who was at the table for the United Nations when it was first started. Dorothy Height, who was an advisor to presidents. Bethune, an advisor to Roosevelt. Dr. Height, another Delta who was involved in the movement and an advisor to Johnson. Daisy Bates, Fannie Lou Hamer, Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman, the first woman to run for president of these United States. Alexis Herman, Loretta Lynch, all Deltas who were significant in the movement. And I always tell our SOARs, and a shout out to our SOARs before I forget, to Delta Sigma Theta, I can't leave that out. You know, social action is in the DNA of Delta Sigma Theta. I think it's in the DNA of Black women. When you look at the pivot and the changes that we have made, and you look at Kamala Harris now running for VP for these United States, oh my gosh, think about that. They have all had a significant impact in changing society and changing the way we move and think. Harriet Tubman from that very beginning. Rosa Parks on that bus, who changed things. Amelia Boynton, who asked, a good SOAR who asked Martin Luther King to come to Selma to start that movement. We have always played, even if we were behind the scenes, a pivotal role in making sure there was a change. When you look at all of our Greek letter organizations and the women who we all have in Congress right now, and the difference that they're all making, we have 7, my sister Sora has 7. We can change the face of what this country looks like if we just are smart enough to use and exercise our vote. I think that's critically important for all Black women in terms of making sure we use the power in our voice and the power in our vote to take that responsibility. Not voting for Black women is a selfish act, because Black women are not only voting for themselves, and we are role models for our children and others in our family, but they're voting for their children. I'm voting for my children, my grandchildren. We are voting for our African-American community and voting for all those for whom freedom and equitable rights are in danger right now. We have always been strong advocates and voters. We've got to get our men to vote. And who else can influence them greater than we can? So when it comes to the impact we have and the history we have in terms of making a change, when you think of those names, they all have made a change in terms of what the society is about and who we are. We've got that power. We have to make sure we are smart enough to use that power and influence that we have.
Thank you so much. Dr. Glenda, I'll call you Dr. Glenda since we have 2 Glendas on the show today.
Good. Well, thank you very much. And thank you to Higher Heights. This is such a wonderful program and so thankful to be invited. I start by giving a shout out to the 300,000 members of Alpha Kappa Alpha around the world. Let me follow in the footsteps and say some things about Rosa Parks, and who is deemed the mother of the civil rights movement, and Coretta Scott King. And let's talk about Kamala Harris right now. So we're following these footsteps of great women who are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha, but they are not just limited to AKAs. We got the members of all the Greek letter organizations, those who are in churches, and those whose names we may not even know, but we're following in their footsteps. I'm proud to just say that we have 7 members in Congress who are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha. We have 11 college presidents who are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha, HBCU and other colleges, and non-HBCUs, college presidents in the C-suites and leading major corporations. So that's how we show the women leadership in our organizations. But you know, it doesn't matter what generation. We went back to yesteryear, but what's so intriguing is that those same issues that we had back then, we have them right now. The right to vote. We were fighting for the right to vote. The suffrage movement, when AKs and Deltas were there, and I was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha said, we're not gonna be at the back of this line. We're gonna be up in front. wrote a letter in 1930. Can you imagine that? 1913, the audacity to write a letter to the head of the march and say, we're not going to be in that. We're not going to be at the back of the march. So we joined in with the Deltas, and we did make sure that we were there, and the church women in their hats, and at the parade. It wasn't a parade, it was a march for women's suffrage. So it didn't affect us until several decades later. But those same issues, the right to vote, but now it's elevated. It's just more than just the right to vote. It's the right to protect that vote, to make sure that vote is not taken for granted. We know some instances. We watched Florida, we watched Georgia. We still have our eyes on other states that are notorious for not protecting the right to vote. Every vote must be counted. Every vote must be protected, especially the black vote. That same issue that was back there 100 years ago is still here now. Education. We're fighting for education. That was a fight, Brown v. Education, 60 years ago. Here we are now, still fighting for equal funding in education, equal treatment under the law in education. So Black women leadership is so important because we have these same issues. We can look back and see how it was done yesteryear, add a couple computers and smartphones to it, and we have more research that we have access to, but it's important that we understand what it means. And let me say one last point, and that's on voting again. We absolutely must go out and vote. Not to vote is a sin. And we know that the wages of sin is what? Death. So you must vote in this election.
And so before this segment ends, because this was literally just a short, quick coffee conversation, sisterhood is, as I mentioned up front, is defined in a variety of reasons, a variety of ways. So can you both share quickly in this moment where, this week, Tracy and I talked about how we're struggling. Like, this is the week where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of the week. And we are all, with this brunch is bringing all of us joy. And so this has been a rough week. It's been a rough year. Share a little bit of how we can root our sisterhood in bringing joy in this moment. Beverly?
Well, it's we are able to comfort and support each other, and I think that's important. We have a social action kit out there. We have continuous meetings. We're Zooming day and night because I think the other thing that's important is being able to see each other. So in this moment when it is so difficult, we are actually doing some work with mental health webinars, because those are important in terms of making sure we are not only physically but mentally taking care of ourselves, checking in with each other. We're asking our sorors to check in with each other and check in with our senior sorors who are not able to get out. It is important. And Sister Soror Glover and I and our Greek letter organizations, in terms of the sororities, we are checking in on each other to make sure as leaders in this movement that we're okay. And I think that constant contact, the fact that we do have Zoom, as much as I hate to Zoom night and day, we do it a lot. It gives us a chance to see each other, see how we're doing, feel how we're doing, and the phone calls and the text messages and the jokes along the way, because, we have to have some fun with this whole thing. So we try to have a little fun with each other too. And I think that helps take off the tension. Soror Glover?
Let me start on this Sunday by saying the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Oh, yes.
And the strength of the Lord is my joy. And so we take that joy to our sisterhood, and we check on each other, and we love on each other. And we just talk about the good and reflect on the good. Because one thing I've lived long enough to know is that trouble does not last always. And so we're looking forward to a few days from now, a few weeks from now, when trouble won't be around to last always. And so that's the joy of knowing what's going to happen that's coming in the future.
I've got one final question for you all as we, this whirlwind conversation that we're having with Black women today. Our organizations combined, there are numbers, right? Kamala Harris stood up and she talked about her beloved AKA, her HBCUs. Like, it is a whole community that, folks are really excited about activating to ensure that they are voicing their opinions in this election, this cycle. Really want to hear from you all. What are you all doing to activate your membership? Just briefly, like, what are the things that I heard you mention, Beverly, there's an action toolkit, but how are you trying to galvanize the power of Delta Sigma Theta and Alpha Kappa Alpha this election cycle?
We have, I'll make this really brief. We have put out a virtual toolkit for social action because they can't come together. So we've taken all the material we have and we put it in a kit that explains how you can do everything in a virtual environment to make sure we are doing the things we need to do. We are having source check in. Whenever there's an event, they're contacting us to let us know. We have a helpline that they can go to if they aren't sure if the event will work out or not, and if they need some support with it. We're asking people to provide testimony in their local environment. So we have not changed any activities we're doing. We changed the mode in which we do it, but we still intend to and keep strong in terms of making sure we have something happening every day, sometimes 2-3 times a day. But that's extremely important that we keep that bond and we provide tools to all of our members in terms of what to do.
That's great. Dr. Glenda?
Good. And I won't go into the details of our toolkit, but I will tell you that we also have a toolkit because you almost have to do that to give the instruction on what to do. But one thing I will say, we've told them prepare for election day. Have your mask, have your gloves, your face covering, your lawn chair, your water, your peanuts, or whatever. Be prepared. And one thing we've done to focus is HBCU focus. We've asked every HBCU to have every Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter on HBCU campus to have some kind of voter education project, whether it's voter mobilization, voter registration, voter education. It has to be done on that chapter, on that campus. And then finally, Alpha Kappa Alpha, we've asked every lawyer, we've put a call for all the lawyers to come together. I met with them on Friday evening to say, look, we know this is going to be a very contentious election. If a ballot can be challenged, it will. So we're going to partner with the National Bar Association and their voter protection project, the election protection project, to make sure we protect the votes that come in. We know there are some notorious voter suppression methodologies. When the machines don't work, the poorly trained persons at the poll, the person that closing early. We know all the grandfather of them all of how to voter suppress. So we're going to make sure we have lawyers available to go to court, to file injunctions, to make sure we're there to monitor. We don't intend for this election to be taken away from us.
All right. Everybody needs to make a vote plan. I'm so appreciative that you all are doing the work to make sure that you're activating your network to ensure that they're going to be on the front lines of defending democracy, because that's what Black women do. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll have you back. It's going to be a long 40-some days until
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks again. So, it has been a weekend, has it not, Glenda?
Girl, we've been trying to bring each other across the finish line. And so, we gonna do some joy right now?
We need some joy right now. I think we need a little joy. We're going straight to our segment because the DJ is not there. So hey, some more joy. We're going straight to the other segment, Glenda. We're gonna bring in the other host, the other SIP host. We're gonna hold the joy and bring in some other women that bring us joy, our sister friends, Adrienne, Fatima, and Judy. And one of our other sister friends who's joining us this afternoon, Latasha Brown. There they are.
Hey, ladies.
Hey.
Hey.
I was gonna say, I was like, I got joy. I bring joy.
I know Tracy said we're gonna skip the joy and bring in the hosts.
No, I said some other women who bring me joy is what
You did. You cleaned it up, girl. You cleaned it up. Thank you so much.
Ready, like, I don't know what's going on, but okay.
I'm like, Glenda, they said that the DJ's not there yet. So we're gonna bring everybody in. And Tasha. We don't have a DJ, we got Latasha Brown. That's
Latasha.
Yes, Latasha. With
Hi,
that
Latasha.
live performance.
we about to roommate Latasha. Look at that. That's nice.
Roommate.
To have a live.
Are you trying to get 100 all the time, ain't you? You just moving around the house.
If you're gonna do Black girl stuff, you gotta have you some candles, you gotta have you some flowers. Listen, and that you gotta have your sister leader, and you gotta have you some pineapple juice.
Well, welcome, ladies. So this is the SIP host crew and our girl, Latasha Brown. Your SIP hosts are Fatima Goss-Graves from the National Women's Law Center, Judith Brown-Dianis from the Advancement Project National Office, Adrian Shropshire from Black PAC, and our sister girl, Latasha Brown from Black Voters Matter Fund. And so this is the crew we lean on. This is the sister girl crew from the movement to help Black women vote, run, win, and lead. And so we've all been on our text thread, like y'all have been on your girlfriend's text thread. And this week was a struggle text thread. And so I want Fatima to start we're just gonna reflect on, like, Friday if you weren't already taken out by Chadwick Boseman, Friday night, we all started texting each other about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. So Fatima, I know you've worked with her for years, so.
Well, I mean, I have to say that I was like a lot of us, just sort of actually sitting, enjoying dinner, and I just stopped and froze when that news came, in part because of what it means for this country, in part because of her legacy. I mean, she really was the architect for what we understand about our legal rights in this country around gender equality, right? She created it when there wasn't a thing. And so to have that hole on the court, and then also, it has only been, even though the last 2 days have felt like 40 days, it has only been 2 days, and we're already hearing that there's gonna be a race to name a nomination this week, and people are voting. And so what all of that means right now, and I think about the Black women who are leading in this country and being called upon to rise again and again and again, and will rise in this moment. So it's a heavy time, though. Heavy.
It is a heavy time. And I think, to your point, it's been 2 days. Like, we haven't even had 5 minutes to just acknowledge her contribution before it was already, and we're gonna fill that seat, and here are the names, and so, Fatima, you can speak to this, as we look back to 2016, when Obama's had, you should talk about that.
Some of us, I have to say, if you didn't learn the name Merrick Garland, I hope you learn it now, because in 2016, Justice Scalia passed away in February. And in March of that year.
Not September.
So not 40 days before the election, but in February.
Not when the voting had already started.
Right, when people are voting already.
Right.
So President Obama nominated Merrick Garland in March. And do you know Merrick Garland didn't even get a hearing?
No, that's right.
He didn't get a conversation. They wouldn't meet with him. They were like, I'm sorry, it is an election year. And there are all of these clips that are going around, if you haven't seen them, of them saying, and Lindsey Graham in particular, saying, I want you to quote me.
Right, that's right, he sure did.
4 years from now, if the last year of the president's term, there is a vacancy, we should not move this nomination. And so everyone's trying to backtrack in ways that are, it's not just that it's hypocritical, it really, for those of us who are members of the Supreme Court bar, have practiced law for a long time, they will break the court, right, as a legitimate institution. It is already fragile for a whole range of reasons, but so apparently what happened in 2016 isn't applying in the same way.
They don't care what they said, right? Like this, that they're gonna play hardball. They don't care. Bring out those videos. Show that I said that then. Guess what? The American people don't, the ones who are voting for that party do not care. And so I think, this is a really difficult time, and I think it's an opportunity for us to, first of all, understand how this works, right? But also to understand that at the end of the day, politics is a dirty thing. And that, and I'm upset that we don't get time to just mourn. We don't get time to just like think about her legacy. And I would tell people, if you have not seen the documentary Notorious RBG, you need to go see it. Because you can probably get it online, I'm sure. It is like an incredible documentary about her life, so that you can understand all of the good that she has done, just how badass she was. And, she is someone who decided, she like dug in and was like, I'm gonna hold on till the end. I am gonna beat this cancer. She was like a woman with 9 lives, I'm telling you. And just think of all the things that she went through physically to keep trying to hold on until the next president. So
her last words to her granddaughter were very clear, that it was her fervent wish that there would not be any movement on any nomination before there is a next president and a next Congress. And that is a step to protect the court.
On the Basis of Sex is the other feature film about her life that also gives you the sort of chronicle of story. Latasha?
Yeah, sisters, I just want to add another element to this. That one, I do think that this is a woman who contributed greatly, and that there should be a space for us to mourn her life and literally be able to lift up and celebrate her legacy. I think we also have to call those folks out for being hypocritical. But at the end of the day, ain't America always been hypocritical? I mean, that's part of the character of the country. Right. We frame this thing as if this is new. White folks have been doing that for years, where they've been setting a particular kind of standard that we're supposed to follow through to, right? And then fundamentally, it is not applicable to all of us. So let's not let's not act like this is something new, right? This is also the country that said all people were created equal, yet had millions of Black folks enslaved and created genocide on Native Americans. This is also a country that Black women, just as Dr. Beverly said earlier, President Beverly said earlier, that here it is that 100 years ago, Black women were walking and organizing with our white counterparts, yet and still, right, they were telling us to go to the back of the line, and it took 50 more years for us to get the right to vote. My point is hypocrisy and the consolidation of white power is so American as American pie. What I think fundamentally the question is around Black women for us. The question isn't around how we gonna change folks, right? The question is how we gonna lean into our power to be transformative, because every time we've stepped up and helped, to the extent that democracy does exist in this country, we helped it to be so. And so if this nation is to be different, right, we're going to, as long as, and I want us to get out of this context of thinking that fundamentally America had arrived. Before Trump, there were 38 million folks that were in poverty in this country. The majority of them are people. Before Trump, right, we had a 700% increase of Black women who are in jail. Some of them are chained by their ankles as they're giving birth, right? Before Trump, Black women had the highest rate of going into college. We are the highest number of women that own businesses. We're the highest number of women who vote to turn out. Yet when you look at economically, we're paid the less at the bottom. Our economic stability is instability at the bottom. The bottom line is something ain't working. I'm raising this because I think that we've got to be honest about what God is providing in this moment for us. That until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change, we'll stay in the same position and think everything is okay. Now we're all a little uncomfortable, right? And yes, it is wrong what is happening, but in this discomfort in this pain is great promise and possibilities.
That's
And
right.
what I'm saying by that is we got to change and make this nation live up to what it has promised, to make this nation land up to what it is that we want. So yes, like the Republicans, let's stop operating, acting like white folks got some rules in this country that they abide by, because they don't.
That's right.
The truth of the matter is, if America is to be different, we will have to organize. We have to work with other righteous brothers and sisters, whether it's our righteous white brothers and sisters, Latinx brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters. It is more of them. There's more of us than it is of them. And so we keep giving them the narrative, like in some way, is the rules gonna protect us? The Supreme Court ain't never protect us. The bottom line is in 1954, the Brown versus the Board of Education was in 1954. Most schools were not desegregated to the 70s. You know why? Because finally it was a court case, and when the people rose up, right, and there was an alignment, it made it be real. Policy don't matter in America if the people don't make it be real. And so I just want us to grab hold to this moment and know this is the moment that all of the ugliness, all the racism, because I don't know if y'all remember, but remember about 12 years ago, racism had disappeared because it was a black president. They said we were post-racial America. Do y'all remember that? Okay. But that in this context, we as Black women, I hope we see what is being asked of us in this moment. That this is the moment that in this literally void of leadership, that I believe, because I'm a believer, this is my belief, that God is calling us to literally have a radical reimagining of this country and to shake this nation. And I think some of this hypocrisy we're seeing that we're appalled by, I'm so glad that they saying it, y'all, right? I'm so glad they say it, because they're exposing themselves, right? And it brings that racism that has always been there, it's bringing it to the surface. And so if it's at the surface, then the question is, how are we gonna respond? And so I believe that people are able to see the difference in leadership. And so I just want to offer that in this midst of this, that sometimes in the conversation of this that I've been hearing outside of this space, but has been annoying me, even on the media, is we've been acting like America was straight till Trump showed up, right? And so, and it's not true. The truth of the matter is the possibility and the potential for this to be, we can't go around brag that we're the wealthiest country in the world and 38 million people are in poverty, y'all. We can't sit here and act like we are this developed democracy when 17 million people were dropped from the voting rolls between 2016 and 2018. But what we can do is we can lean into how our gifts and literally be focused and know that when we work together, we win. When Black women rise up and we work together, things got to change, y'all. And so ultimately, we have got to be gladiators. We have to literally see ourselves as the founders. Like they say it was the founders of America back then, right? They weren't the founders of democracy because they couldn't even see none of us on this phone right now. They couldn't even see any of us in this position, right? They were severely limited in their vision. So what perhaps if Black women in this moment, if we lean into our gifts, into our power, into the amplification of our voices, right? And we literally, instead of looking backwards, we see ourselves as the founders of the new nation, of the founders of America that won't put children in cages, the founders of an America that when people work, they can pay their bills, the founders of America that when we're talking about healthcare, that we all have access to that. We don't have to keep begging folks. What do Black women do best? When we just say, when we get tired, we're like, well, I'm gonna do it myself. So at this point, that's what sisters need to be saying. We just gonna take care of business ourselves. And I'm gonna take my drink on that.
Look, there's people like, people are commenting, can I join her church?
No, I am not a minister, but I do want, if there's anything, the sisters that are listening, I don't want to continue to just speak from a political pundit. Everything in my fiber and my being, y'all, this is our moment and we got to see it, but we got to get outside of our comfort zone and stop responding to those who have done everything to try to do, include kill us. So at this moment, if they want to go and move forward, then you know what we need to do? That we need to push, we need to take that whole Senate out, take the whole House of Representatives out, make sure that DC becomes a state, make sure that Puerto Rico becomes a state. You got 4 new senators, expand the Supreme Court. We can teach you about some power. So if you want to play, let's play.
Yes. For that rallying call. And that is why hashtag Black Women Vote 2020
Wow, what an amazing look back. Black women are truly the defenders of our homes, our communities, and our democracy. I think you'll agree with me on the importance of Black women's leadership during a time like this. As we harness the momentum of our 2020 wins and the innovative programming of the SIP, I'm excited for what's next. I hope you will join us on Friday, May 7th at 2 p.m. as the SIP relaunches with a new format.